I was part of a conversation the other day, and a really interesting point was brought up that I just kind of wanted to have a super brief conversation around. Also, I look nuts right now. It's just one of those days where hair isn't cooperating. I wanted to talk about the difference that not many people know between branding and marketing. They're two separate things. I think when people decide that they want to start something, do coaching, help people make a product, do a service, whatever, one of the first things, and I'm guilty of this too, okay, this isn't like a case of the pot calling the kettle black, I'm fully guilty of this, but something that happens a lot is that when you get this new idea, you think, what colors should I have? What should my website look like? How should I describe what I do to people? What title should I give myself? Those are all things pertaining to branding. And the reason that it's branding is because it's not actually anything that moves the needle forward. It's just how you are controlling your own perception, reading the label outside of the pickle jar, if you will. This is where you are creating your identity. Have you ever seen that movie, Eat, Pray, Love? It's based off of a really popular book by Liz Gilbert. If you don't know the premise of the movie, it's this woman who gets divorced. She loses herself, all based on a true story. And she travels to 3 different countries. I had to look it up. It takes place in Italy, India, and Indonesia, where she learns to eat, pray, and love. And while she's in India, she goes to this ashram and learns how to meditate and stuff. And she's itchy, the mosquitoes are biting her. She's just her mind is going a million miles an hour. She's got a little bit of ADHD going on. And she's thinking about, oh my God, I could build my own meditation room when I get back. That is such a good example of the difference between branding and marketing. When you decide you want to meditate, you don't think about, oh, what should my meditation room look like? You think about, okay, what do I need to do to actually learn how to meditate? What actually needs to happen in order for you to create this thing? We need to talk about beautiful words like market research, like positioning, like pricing. All those really awesome, beautiful, sexy words that people should think of when they are interested in launching or starting something. If you're in a sales call with someone and you're pitching all of this stuff to them, what oppositions are they going to have and how are you going to address them? How much value are you planning on providing for the cost, and does it make sense? I mean, these are just a few examples of what comes to mind when I think of more of the business marketing side of things, but that's exactly what it is. The differentiator between the two is the business. How can you make money off of it? How can you get people aware of it? How can you sell it? How can you market it? How can you position it? What can you be doing? And thinking about what your meditation room is going to look like is not always the most effective way of doing that. That's it's kind of like if you are writing a resume, let's say. I think it's usually pretty optimal to work on your experience first before writing your objective statement at the top of your piece of paper. I don't even know if that's a thing anymore. Do people still write those what are those, objective statements or something at the top? I've heard so many mixed things about resumes, and I'm so glad to be out of that world because I'm self-employed. But the idea still stands. And listen, what you decide to go with and this is assuming you're brand new, you've never done this kind of thing before, you're not a serial entrepreneur. Been there myself, fully there. This is season 4 that I'm going on, dude. So I know what I'm talking about when I say that you're most likely not going to start out with the thing that you set out to do. I started out with something called a publishing power pack. I don't even know if I've even uttered those words in the last, maybe 3 years? Has it been that long? The publishing power pack was something that I thought a lot of people could benefit from, and they probably could, but my problem was actually the opposite problem people had, which was going a little too niche. And before I get ahead of myself, basically the publishing power pack was it was a one-off thing. You pay $1,000 or something, and you basically get an entire plan that tells you how to get published in the way that makes the most sense for you, based off your goals, your needs, your ambitions, all that stuff. Never got one client for that. And keep in mind too, I was heavily oriented in the book space. If you look at the rest of my YouTube stuff, if you haven't already, if you're a newer subscriber, I talked a lot about books, man. Anyway, no one bought it. So I was okay, iteration number 2, following the breadcrumbs, following market feedback. No feedback is still feedback, and I had no feedback. So I was okay, well, I don't know what it is, but I know what it's not. So we're going to try something else, which was phase 2, season 2, if you will. I believe this was an all-in-one comprehensive book to publication pipeline where I was going to help people write, publish, and promote their book. And I thought, now this is it. This is what it is, because it keeps people in my pipeline for much, much longer versus a one-off thing like the publishing power pack. Now, I did get my first client too. I think I got 2 clients actually, but they didn't go through the whole pipeline. They were very, very, very short-term clients. I also learned that I don't like book coaching. I did that for a handful of clients. 3, I think, actually. Anyway, learned that I don't like it. I don't like the craft of writing. That's the thing that a lot of people like. I don't like it. I like the business side of stuff, which led me into season 3, which was marketing books to market brands. This is where I started to get just a little bit closer. And this is where I got my first serious client. So that was a big win for me, and I still work with him to this day. He initially hired me to market his book, which was a nonfiction book. And I'm a nonfiction person. I've marketed fiction and nonfiction, but nonfiction is my favorite because what you're marketing is not just the book. It's also the impact. It's the experience. It's like the expansion pack, whether that be a community, whether that be coaching, whether that be a podcast, something. There's usually something else beyond the book that the book is marketing. So I got my first big client with that, my shark, if you will. There's fish, there's sharks, and there's whales. That was my first shark client. He hired me to market his book, and then he was like, oh, hey, I also have an idea for this. Is this something that you could help with? Oh, I have an idea for this too. Is that also something that you could help with? And it gradually started to turn into this arrangement that was more than just book marketing. I was helping to basically market a brand, and that was a big breadcrumb. And that's what I ended up following. That led me to what I do now. And now I have the most interest in what I do now than I ever had before. And I'm sure that there's going to be other future iterations. I might not even be doing the same thing as I am now in the next few years. I really don't know. But that's the beauty of having personal brand, is that it's okay for that to ebb and flow a little bit. I was the book person. Now I'm trying to change the narrative a little bit. It's a very big ship to more of like the marketing business oriented kind of stuff, which is the content that I do now, very business oriented. And so now what I do is, well, actually, now that I think about it, I'm on season 5. Holy cow, I'm on season 5. But anyway, not to bore you, that led me to season 4, which was doing basically all-in-one digital marketing for people. And what was really unique about this is that what I was charging was way less than what it would be if you hired, interviewed, onboard, and trained a contractor or even an employee to help you do the same things that I was doing to probably a lesser degree of quality. Hey, hire me for this much money a month. If we don't like it, we don't have to do it. These are all the goals. It's results driven. It's data driven. I still do all that stuff. Data is my very favorite word. It informs a lot of what I do. And I started to notice that that was a thing that was really catching people's attention, because while not everyone has a book to market, everyone has something to market, whether that's a service, whether that's a product, whether that's a book, whether that's a podcast, whether that's a community. It changes for everyone, but everyone usually needs marketing support in some kind of way because they don't want to do it. They don't have the time to do it. They're overwhelmed with all the options. They can't keep up with it, or they've managed their entire careers. If they're like later in their careers, they don't want to keep doing that anymore. They'd rather just give it all to some young kid like me to take care of. And now we're on season 5 because I've gradually followed the breadcrumbs. And now my sort of pitch, if you will, is that I help niche experts capitalize on their reputations by turning their organic demand into sustainable marketing strategies. And I really hope that wasn't too many buzzwords, but basically all it means is I do very, very specific marketing. So there's always something to learn, but the difference is that the branding has to do with how are you communicating all of the stuff that you're doing, versus the marketing, which is more of how are you providing value and letting people know that what you're doing is valuable. That's what reels people in. That's what gets people to stick around. That's what gets people to be curious, which is, I think, one of the best responses that you can ever get from a stranger, no matter who they are or what they do. I think curiosity is probably one of the best emotions because you can do a lot with that. You can kind of lean into the conversation and talk about their pain points, talk about their perceptions, play a little bit on first impressions or something, you know? Like, there's a lot that you can do with curiosity. What you don't want to have is nothing. You don't want to be ghosted because that's not fun. But just getting feedback at all, if you're getting started, is so hard because no one knows who you are. No one knows what you do. You're still trying to figure out how to communicate all that stuff and figure out, I hate to keep using this cliche, but it's so true, how to read the label on the outside of your own pickle jar. That's really hard to do. It takes a lot of self-awareness to be able to do something like that, which is kind of personally what I really like about marketing in general, is that it's a blend of psychology and social intelligence. And if you're a highly empathic observer, like I have been, like your homegirl, it ends up being kind of fun. The thing is, people don't always know what they need. They just know that they have a problem. So what they're expecting is an immediate solution. And this is just what I've seen generally. Like I've done this long enough that I've been able to see this as a pattern. People think they know what they need. So what you do is you give them that. And then you say, actually, this is what you need. So it's sort of like you're hooking them in. If you're basically one of those people who stands around in Costco with like the little snacks on the toothpick, hoping to sell the whole thing. Like, oh, hey, are you a hungry shopper? Boy, it's a lot of work shopping around this Costco here, isn't it? It's like a 10-mile radius in this joint. Have a hot dog. Take a load off. Oh, I'm glad you liked it. Actually, we happen to have like sell like full servings if you liked what you got out of that. That's such... It's such a bad example, dude. I'm at the end of my day. My brain doesn't work well at 3:26 in the afternoon. But I really hope you get what I'm trying to say. But there's a difference between the branding and the marketing. It's not, ooh, what should my colors be? What should my website be? It's, how do I create value? How do I create demand? How do I do all the things that are going to move the needle forward? Anyway, if you got something out of it, I'm playing around with a new format, but if you got something out of this, consider liking and subscribing, because if you got something out of it, chances are someone else will too. So just spread the love a little bit. Enjoy the rest of your day. Please use this information.